Chile do the same and win their first Copa America? What a man to win it! And Chile is champion!
Welcome to the Chilean Football Show on the Red One TV.
Hello and welcome to episode number 8 of the Chilean Football Show on the Red One TV YouTube channel and on Spotify in partnership with Chile Today News. We are a 1-hour show dedicated to Chilean football in English where we cover La Roja, Primera Edición, Chileans abroad, and everything in between. I'm your host Tom Snuff, and the panelists are Matias, Grez, and Daniel Campos. Matias, how are you doing?
Doing well, thanks. How are you?
Doing well. Daniel, how are you as well?
Thanks for having me on the show.
Great. We got lots to discuss on the show, beginning with one of the biggest news. Catolica champion for 3 times in a row for the first time ever, El Tricampeón. Daniel, you're a Catolica fan, I think we could say. No?
This is that.
You think this team can win even a 4th time, or you think right now is where a lot of the best players on the team will start to leave for bigger clubs?
It's a one question question that can be divided with many questions. True, because there's so much to cover at San Carlos de Apoquindo. Jose Maria Buljubasic, former goalkeeper and club director, admitted with the departure of Ariel Holan that there's a reality in economic terms, having, in hindsight now for nearly 15 years now, that in terms of football economics, you can't compete with teams like Santos or anyone in the Brasileirão, and Holan has left. And it's the 3rd consecutive manager to leave in 3 titles. That's unprecedented. But there's a reason why Catolica is the best sporting institution in Chile. I'm not a fan of Catolica, but yes, I do have a soft spot for Catolica. It's where one day I'd like to work, and why not? And you look at the players who are homegrown; they're ready for national team, duty. Saavedra, bring him on. That's the legacy that they've left. So, to answer the one-line question that you've given us, it's actually telling to reply, because time will tell. Now, after 3 attempts, exiting the group stages in the Libertadores, well, okay, you get another shot at a 4th attempt, and you like, and fans think, and I want to invite Matias, to the same question. You've won 3 titles in a row, and you can't get past the group stage. How? Why? Well, is CONMEBOL on purpose doing it, so the Chilean clubs don't progress, or is it because they don't transfer the good football in the domestic league to the Libertadores? Because that's the key, to transfer it. We have to wait and see who the new manager is. Is the squad strong? Yes. Can he get stronger? Yes. It's telling, and we'll see at the Libertadores. Are they capable? Yes, I think so.
Yeah, I think we spoke in the past, actually. Obviously, they are by far the best, not only team, but at the moment, the best football institution in the country. They're so well run. We mentioned previously it's chalk and cheese comparing them to Colo-Colo at the moment. And you're absolutely right. I mean, they've won 3 titles back to back, and now they should be aspiring for more. Now that they've got the foundation in place, they're obviously the best club in Chile. We know that now. And I think everything, the squad, the institution is in place for the next manager to come in and be successful. I'd like them to hire another manager that perhaps wouldn't change the style that much. I think the football they played and the overall team under Holan this season just gone was perhaps the best of those 3 teams that won back-to-back titles. But you're absolutely right. They need to start doing it in international competitions now. But in the past, we've lamented the quality of Chilean football. And Daniel, you say, does the style of play not translate? Well, my question is, does the quality not translate? I mean, we know the Chilean league, is among the weakest on the continent. So, much like we would say with PSG, for example, if they ever struggle in the Champions League because the competition in France isn't as strong, I would say the same thing about Catolica in Chile.
True.
who are they up against? We know you're the best team in Chile, but what are you the best of? What really is your level? And, for the last, like you said, 3-4 seasons, they've come up short. So, I think that realistically, that needs to be top of the agenda for the next manager.
Is it psychological to say, okay, Catolica will win all the 3 home matches like San Carlos de Apoquindo? We've got that easy. But it's like, hang on, you've got Gremio, you've got Inter de Porto Alegre, you've got whoever the other rivals have been, América y Cali, for instance, in the 2020 edition. And then just expect to draw away. That's got to change. If you're the league champion, Catolica has to go for, 6 matches, 18 points. Lose 1 of the 6 and win 5.
And that's exactly why Ariel Holan is leaving. He said that he felt his cycle at Catolica had ended. He can't compete with bigger budgets like Santos, like Gremio, like Argentinian clubs. So therefore, he feels that the bar has been set high, and therefore there's nothing more for him personally to achieve at Catolica in the Chilean league. And you mentioned earlier, Daniel Bulvasic has done a great job, sporting director. He's really nailed the recruitment process as far as players, because it almost feels like Catolica has like a second team. You know what I mean? And part of that has to do with their academy as well. But again, 3 years in a row winning the Chilean league, at some point or another, you have to get some sort of result, reward in the Libertadores tournament. Matias, with Ariel Holan leaving, you mentioned earlier about the style of play. You have to get a coach who doesn't change the style too much. Who could be some of the potential candidates?
Honestly, I mean, maybe Daniel knows, who they're looking at better in Chile. I mean, Holan was only announced to have left the other day. So I mean, I couldn't tell you who they might have in mind. But like I said, I've enjoyed their style of play this season more than any over the last 3 seasons of these title-winning campaigns. And I think it's important, whatever coach comes in, he maintains the same philosophy of youth development. I think that's important first and foremost. And after that, somebody I'd say that has continental experience in the Libertadores, and somebody that has been past the group stages and has that experience because, like you said, Daniel, they have the quality to do it. That's no doubt. They've had the quality in each of the last 3 seasons to get past the group stages, so that isn't the issue. So whether it is that mental hurdle, I mean, that needs to be, you would think a manager with that experience would be able to help them get over that.
It's really good that you open up who the following or the next manager could be. That's I think what Matias has just hit the nail, because first of all, especially Argentinians, let's consider their social economic reality. When they cross the mountains, they get to San Carlos Apoquindo. Holy smokes, this is beautiful. This is a European setup. And the new stadium hasn't even been constructed yet. So you've got the tools, you've got the infrastructure for a professional setting. It's likely it might be, hopefully, a national manager, but it could also likely be an Argentinian or a Uruguayan manager.
And you mentioned there, it makes it very appealing for coaches and players to come to Universidad Católica. But, I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and they brought up a very good point. The players are more important than the coach. If a good coach comes in and he doesn't have the resources, the quality players, because if you think about it, yes, they've done good hiring 3 good coaches, but they've all left after 1 season. If Holan, Quinteros didn't have something to work with, would they have been as successful?
Well, let's just say Manuel Pellegrini wants to come back to Chile and they sign Pellegrini to Catolica. Then, the whole rhetoric and dialogue would be, it's all about the manager. So I don't buy it. So then bring up Mario Lepe, who is a youth development coach, bringing him up to the first team. Isn't it about the players? No, I don't buy into it. Matias?
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the point I made earlier. I mean, about them being such a great sporting institution, and the fact they've had such a rapid turnover of managers, but each of them have had success. They're obviously good individual managers, but the framework at the club has been there to allow them to be successful. And I think Catolica is they have such a good squad, they're such a good institution at the moment. It would have to be, the manager that came in would have to be a disaster for that team, that club not to be competing at the top end of the division. So I feel that it's, I mean, I couldn't tell you which percentage of, is of the success is because of the manager or the squad, but I feel like they have everything in place to allow whoever they choose to come in and do a good job.
And financially speaking, Catolica are doing very well because they've managed their resources. They've signed lots of quality players, but they haven't spent a great deal to the point where to bring them to bankruptcy.
Catolica has never been in bankruptcy as a club, as a sporting club. They as a club, they've traditionally been run and administered by business administration graduates, come from top business schools around the world in Chile, and they're known for the middle class and the elite. But Catolica also attracts everyone, also the working class. But it's being run by people who have private school education with a love for athletics or triathlon or basketball or rugby. So the football is just one of the sporting disciplines. That's why that would also be a disaster. It was a big, bold move to leave Independencia, and buy these hectares of land in San Carlos Apoquindo. San Carlos de Apoquindo was a cow paddock on the foot of the mountains, and look at it now. It's gonna be part of the Pan American Games, and the stadium's gonna be a 5-star facility. So yeah, it all goes downhill from here on the show and in Chilean football, because there's no other club that can match Catolica.
And with Catolica doing so well, let's talk about a team who had quite a disastrous season. Colo-Colo, the only club in Chile to never relegate to La B, surviving after a 1-0 win against Universidad Concepción, thanks to the Argentine Solari. That win giving millions of Chileans happiness. Things would have gotten ugly if Colo-Colo relegated to the second division. Shouldn't have been in the situation to begin with. But how massive is it, Matias, for them to stay in Primera División?
I mean, I think, as we've seen in the past with, South American clubs big South American clubs that have been relegated, you can either bounce back really quickly, like River Plate did. They went on to win 2 Libertadores titles after gaining promotion again, or you could get stuck in the second division like Cruzeiro or América de Cali and never really recover. But I mean, like we said, they're the antithesis of Catolica in many ways. They should be up there with them vying for titles. It's now been 4 years since they've won a title, and this season, like you said before the show, the fans and the players celebrating on the pitch as though they had won a title. They barely stayed up in the division, and I think they've started out well to ensure that this doesn't happen again. They've got rid of a host of aging players and club legends, Esteban Paredes, Matias Fernandez, Valdivia, Carmona, all of which were without question past their prime, taking up valuable wages. And I think it was quite telling that, Paredes, Fernandez and Valdivia, three club legends, not a single one of them saw any minutes in that final due to injury or other reasons, which kind of, I think, goes to tell you, where have they been spending their money? Why bring in these players if they can't play for you in the biggest game? And those players going, and the additions of Solari and Falcon saved them basically. I think if those two players don't join during the season, I think they go down. So they've got a long way to go to ensure this doesn't happen again, and to catch the likes of Catolica at the top. But I think they've made a few steps in the right direction early on.
And you mentioned it there, their idols, referentes, club legends, Matias Fernandez, Jorge Valdivia, Esteban Paredes retiring, biggest National League scorer, Julio Barroso, Incerraldo going to Independiente now. They're all players that are 33 to 37 years old. They're aging. They've been injured for most of the season. Their level of quality has dropped. But overall, they're club legends. But you have to think, Daniel, that it is a good move to get rid of them, especially with the amount of salary that they're taking up.
That's exactly the point. The salary. I was at the club in 2018, and it still leaves a lot to desire. When you make a decision to leave any workplace, either you move because you get an offer somewhere else, or simply because you don't want to be a part of a sinking ship, and then people question your loyalty. But Aníbal Mosa, and I'm going to say it as it is, he launders money, and so he legitimizes his investments in Colo-Colo. The guy has no idea about football. He does know a thing or two about business. So if he's calling the shots, and there's other people who want to also call the shots, and there's also a political agenda in government, whichever government is in power, then you've got a club where no one is directing the ship. You've got fans that are so arrogant about the 1991 Libertadores title. Okay, well then, great. But why doesn't the club organize itself and win a second Libertadores? That's never in the cards. Sort out the violence with the mafias and the barra bravas. Harold May Nichols did bring up a very interesting proposition of renovating the stadium to get 5-star FIFA, rating. Fantastic. That's put on hold by the social uprising and well, if you're living under a rock, there's a pandemic, and so Colo-Colo has to fumigate, do a pest control, and they're blaming it on the players who are past their prime. Correct, all right, but what about the club board directives? They've got to go too, and they've also got to do pest control of their fans, because they're not football fans, they're criminals. It's an absolute shambles. Saving themselves, in fact, I said it, they were not going to go down. It would have been better had they gone down to the B, Primera B, because then there would be a sense of urgency. Let's get the things rectified. Let's get this mess sorted. The mess is going to continue, unfortunately.
And that's the worst thing that can happen, right? At the end of the day, we were speaking earlier. They win, they save themselves from relegation, and they're celebrating like they've won a title. The worst thing that could happen right now could be complacency. And you just mentioned, Daniel, a lot of off-field issues. Let's talk about on the field. Matias, you mentioned earlier how they can get more competitive. Signing guys like Falcon, signing guys like Solari, guys who are young and with projection. What else do they need to go into the market?
I mean, I think exactly that. Kind of just to piggyback off the back of what Daniel was saying, I think Chilean football in general, but Colo-Colo get caught up a lot in nostalgia. And if you look at the signings of Valdivia was injured when they signed him, and they signed him just out of hope that he might be able to come back and play a few games and save them. Fernandez has been injured for a lot of his time there, and they just signed him because he's, they're both idols. They're both legends, not only of their respective clubs, but of the national team. But there was no sense that, we're going to sign players. And they hit the nail on the head twice this season, like we said, with Solari and Falcon.
And who was it? Sorry. Who hit
sorry?
the nail on the head? Who hit the nail in the head?
Colo-Colo, I mean, in terms of signings.
It wasn't Colo-Colo. It was Quinteros' assistant, Walter Lema. He insisted to Colo-Colo and Quinteros, bring in Solari, and there's another agent who brought, what's his name? Peluca. Falcon. So how come no one at the club, sorry to interrupt, how come no one at the club can do proper scouting when you've got all the tools? It took an assistant manager to do it. That doesn't speak highly, What if Quintero wasn't there? Quinteros, may get sacked, if he doesn't get the results next season. Why does it take an assistant manager to urge, hey, bring Solari? Solari saved the club single-handedly with a goal.
And do you think you guys think that this is enough to keep? You guys think this is enough to keep the coach around for next season?
That's the best question of the show.
He saved them. I mean, what more can Colo-Colo hope for?
Yeah. I mean, he did I mean, the argument is, yeah, on one hand, he kept them up. But on the other hand, realistically, they should have won
Mm.
points wise, performed a lot better.
Yeah.
But I know he was limited with quality. But I mean, some of the football they played was just turgid. And it's one of those things. Like we said, they've done a good job, and in many ways ripped off the band-aid, made hard decisions for the club when it comes to nostalgia by getting rid of 8 of these aging players, legends. So maybe it's time to do the same thing with the manager, and go for a different approach, because as limited as he was with what he had at his disposal, I mean, nobody can say that they were good to watch, or they performed as well as they probably could have done.
Yeah, it brought a lot more television audiences for the neutrals. Walter Lema, the Argentinian assistant, also pulled the strings with the shareholding club board directors and said, look, we're open to external help. And psychologists were shown the door because it wasn't working. Colo-Colo wasn't improving. Do you know who improved the team morale? A Chilean Olympic judoka, a judo Olympic athlete who's got a successful entrepreneurship business, and he worked wonders with the psychology of the squad. So, yeah, Thomas, your question, we're gonna have to get back to it in future, editions. And I think that Matias hit the nail with, what needs to be done. Change the attitude, change the approach. Quinteros isn't stupid, but when you're a Colo-Colo, do you sleep at night?
You probably must sleep not very well. No, I think Quinteros deserves a second chance. Because at the end of the day, he arrived to a team that he didn't sign any of those guys. So I think now we're going to be in an off season where him and his assistant will get a chance to analyze the roster. Well, they already made big decisions just now, letting go of those 7 aging players. But this off season, they can really construct the club and turn it around. But if this was a coach that was brought in at the very beginning, and the whole plantel, the whole roster was made up of his decisions, then yes, he has to go. But it's not the case with Quinteros.
And Brian Cortés pulling off brilliant saves, saving the club. The women's also failed to qualify to the Libertadores, thinking that Luis Mena will salvage the club as a former player, as manager. They lose the playoff to La U. Colo-Colo is the biggest club in Chilean women's football, and they failed, to go to the Libertadores. So 2020 is a year where reality has bitten the club in all facets. And the fans, let's not even go there. The fanatics. Oh, we got Adidas strips. Oh, Pilsen del Sur. Oh, let's go and pray. Oh, let's do witchcraft. Let's do fanaticism. It's amazing. People abroad maybe find it extreme, but that's the attraction of Colo-Colo. When they say Colo-Colo Chile, it's true. It's true.
Those kits are lovely.
51% plus.
Those kits are lovely, though.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. Next question. Come on, Thomas.
No, we're going to talk about their arch rivals, Universidad de Chile. After many of them thought that they would fall to 5th, even 6th place, they managed to squeeze in, finish third place in the table, and finish qualified to the group stage of the Libertadores. Something that many people might thought wasn't possible, but they get it done. Good on them.
I mean, obviously fortunate the teams behind them failed so miserably in the run-in. Obviously, Palestino throwing away the chance to be in the Libertadores on the final day of the season. And I mean, I don't know about you, but if we say that Catolica, who are by far and away the best team in the country, they've struggled in the competition. I mean, how far behind them are La U in terms of quality? So they're going to have to make a lot of additions, improve that squad a lot. I think Dudamel is a great manager. I think he's got a lot of experience. I don't doubt that he's the man to take them forward. But that squad needs a lot of changes and a lot of additions if they're going to be competitive in the Libertadores, I think.
Well, Matias is a La U fan.
No chance.
It's been ugly what Azul have done. And then there's always fingers pointed with what's been done with Walter Montillo. And Montillo's going to slowly, how do you say it? Lift the lid off the can of worms, and but there's a lot of people behind the scenes. Sabino Awad, Conca, there's heaps of business people behind them, they filter contracts, they take screenshots of contracts. That's unprofessional, it's unethical, and the fans are asking for Dudamel's head. I mean, Dudamel's a smart manager. Why not, put some pressure on Goldberg and Vargas? But, according to them, they're doing a good job. I don't know if Thomas is a Laú fan. Not. No one's a Laú fan here. Well, Nicolas Mignano is, and he's not on our show. He'd have the inside. Laú need to improve. Absolutely. Otherwise, they're gonna be another Catolica-like team going to the Libertadores groups and the return trip straight back home and try again next season. It's not good for the Chilean game, isn't it?
Well, I think it's fair to say Dudamel has done some good things at the club, especially a club that when he took them in, they were not third place. They were fifth or sixth. Right. So he has improved. He has improved the team in a lot of ways. He doesn't have the support of the directives.
Yeah, he's insisted with Jimmy Martinez in the creative midfield, and now they've snapped up Marcelo Cañete. Huge addition from Cobresal, an ex-Catolica, an ex-Boca youth product, very intelligent. They've got a very good keeper at the back, Fernando de Paul. The defense, Casanova, how big has he grown at the back? Osvaldo Rocky Gonzalez, rumored to stay because there's been talk. Matias Rodriguez is gone. Someone will have to fill in. And then you look at their youth, Simon Contreras. Exciting. So you can't rule out Laú, but you've got to deliver. You've got to deliver, don't you? Well, and yeah, I was going to say something else, but it's too cruel for Laú fans. They need a stadium, but we all know that. They deserve one, don't they?
For sure. A club that size, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge club. It's actually beautiful going to their games, even if you're not a Laú fan. They've got an amazing atmosphere.
Guys, is it realistic for Laú to keep depending on a 36-year-old Joaquin Larribey, who finished second in scoring, just behind Fernando Sanpredi?
You go, Matias, or I go?
Go after you.
If he's banging goals and the guy delivers, well, then don't get rid of him. But yeah, 36 isn't the same as 26.
But, I mean, it's quite telling. I mean, they were after Mago Jimenez as one of their main targets, and ultimately couldn't, priced out of the move by all accounts. But I think he's also proof. For me, he's been one of the best players of the national tournament this season. Scored some amazing goals, and kind of proof at the age of 38 that if you're good enough, we say it about young players, but if you're good enough, then age doesn't matter. And also, interestingly, I mean, I don't know, Martin Lasarte left the door open for every single player, including potentially Mago Jimenez. So what a turnaround that would be.
And also on Laú, sorry guys, they've signed Natalia Campos in the women's. They've got a statement, for the Copa Libertadores. They don't just want to participate; they want to compete. Carlos Vélez is smart with that, Yael Oviedo left, Daniela Zamora up front, Carla Guerrero at the back, and they've made an agreement with the National Federation, ANFP, to share the schedule for training, because let's not forget the Chilean national team have their Olympic qualifier against Cameroon, and the Laú players can go, still on Laú. So it's, contrary to their rivals in Macul, Laú have a big season. It's the first time in the club's history that the women and the men are in their respective Libertadores. It's a big year coming up.
We mentioned before the big club idols leaving Colo-Colo. In this case, Montillo, Rodriguez, and Bosajur leaving. Is that a good thing for Laú, or did these players really were the best for them?
You have to be a Laú fan.
No, I'm not.
But that's what I mean, because fans are not happy, so they would comment with their sentiment, with their attachment and feelings. Absolutely, they've all done very well. Not good enough for the board, maybe.
I mean, entirely depends, doesn't it? If they have replacements lined up already. I mean, for me, Bosijur, I think one of the most professional guys, one of the most experienced guys, and that goes a long way. Especially if you bring in new players, if you bring in young players. We talk about his leadership in the dressing room, in training, the experience he brings. But I mean, let's not forget he was one of Chile's best players on the pitch when they went to the recent World Cup qualifiers. So that's not to say he can't still bring it on the pitch as well. So it looks like a risk, but if they're confident they have replacements lined up that can fill those shoes, then that's a decision they're gonna have to live by.
100%. And where's Bosijur gonna go?
La Serena.
Let's move on to La Serena.
I'm very excited. Obviously, Pájaro Valdés left, 40 years old. One great season, it must be said, in La Serena. Did a lot for that team, both on the pitch and in the dressing room. Obviously struck up a great relationship with Humberto Suazo up front, who's renewed for another year. Great news. And now I'm always, obviously, when a team that you'd expect to be struggling goes out and signs cast-offs, let's say in a nicest possible way, rejects from the bigger teams, especially
misfits,
ones that are aging. You do worry what their intentions are. How motivated are they once they leave those big clubs? Are they just in it for one final payday? But I mean, those are my fears when Suazo first signed and when Valdés first signed. I was pessimistic. When was the last time Suazo played anywhere near sort of the level of Primera División before he re-signed for La Serena? But it showed he was committed, he was motivated, and if you can find that in those players, then like I said before, that the age doesn't necessarily matter. But I mean, I'm just dreaming now of a lineup in La Serena with Suazo, with Bosijur, with Valdivia. Wouldn't be too bad, I don't think, next season.
Unión Española and Palestino round up the top 5, but not so good. Not so good for north end clubs. Deportes Iquique and Coquimbo Unido relegated. A Coquimbo Unido side that after a very, very good Copa Sudamericana run, making all the way to the semifinals. We were talking earlier off camera. In a club of that size, you really, Matias, you were saying earlier, you don't really get a lot of chances to really win a title of that nature, as is the Copa Sudamericana. But it almost feels like they went all in, put all their eggs in one basket, and really it cost them in the end.
And they made the right decision. Obviously, take my La Serena fan hat off and analyze this objectively. As happy as you are to see a rival go down, they approached the situation, in my opinion, perfectly. If a club of that size, once in a generation, once in a lifetime, you're going to have the opportunity to get to the final or win the Sudamericana. A club, clubs like Coquimbo, La Serena, they move up and down the divisions a lot. Those promotions and relegations don't necessarily mean as much than the opportunity to win a continental title. And it's a risk that didn't pay off. But in the end, if you don't take those risks, then if the fans had the opportunity, if you'd have given them the choice between going all in to win the Sudamericana or maybe just staying up by a place, I mean, I think I know they would have gone for the Sudamericana title.
And it's sad also to see how much it meant, especially with the players. The playing group got a lot more cohesion. Juan Jose Rivera also took risks. It's all about risks, yeah. It's the same in business. You don't take risks, there's no return. You can't expect return. And the look on the face of goalkeeper Matias Cano when he got sent off, how much that hurt. Even Mauricio Pinilla, who just retired, what a fantastic, injury plagued, party plagued, goal-popping career and globe-trotting as well. And Rivera would highlight that Pinilla, with all the the body pain, especially his ankles, and he'd play with painkillers, with cortisone injections, just to add his experience for 10-15 minutes to the squad. And well, that's professional football. It's not about sentimentals or deserving. It's you got to get the points. And now the exodus will begin. Abrigo, rumored to leave, will leave. Farfan. So the group is going to dismantle. As Matias points out, Coquimbo Unido played everything, and it's harsh, isn't it? Now the team's dismantling. In the long term, you want a club like that to go back, and get promoted again. But
just out of interest,
that's professional football.
No, just a question to you two guys. I mean, even with hindsight, do you think La Serena fans? Do you think the clubs they still would have gone all in for that Sudamericana title? I mean, I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, but I'd like to think they would have.
Yes, because Conmebol much prefer an Argentinian club to win a Sudamericana, and Defensa Justicia got a lot of help, and there's no Chilean presence in the boardroom in Luque in Paraguay, because the Chilean health ministry did the right thing, and Defensa Justicia didn't, and they got away with it, and then fair square to them, they won the final, where they should not have reached the final in the first place. The first leg semi should have been played in Coquimbo, and that's that. Thomas?
Yeah, that was quite the fiasco. I mean, you have to follow the health protocols. I mean, at the end of the day, if the health ministry of one country says you can't leave, you can't leave. I mean, what do you want to say? I mean, if it wasn't safe to play in Argentina, the return leg, I mean, I think Conmebol could have handled it better, but at the end of the day, the game was played in Paraguay, which, I mean, surprise, surprise, that's where the Conmebol headquarters are, in a neutral venue. But, but again, it's interesting to say because Defensa Justicia, they're not even big in Argentina. So, I mean, it definitely, I wouldn't say, if it was maybe a situation where Coquimbo Unido was playing Independiente or Racing, well, I think the size of the club is bigger, the influence is bigger. But Defensa Justicia, fair to say, they're around the same size of Coquimbo Unido. So I would say that the stuff that you guys are saying behind the scenes, it affected the result, sure, but not as much as maybe on the field as much. Because I think Crespo now, new coach of Sao Paulo, who was actually a candidate for La Roja, which we will discuss just up next.
Well, as we move on to Martin Lasarte, who owns Defensa Justicia? Daniel Bragarnik, a scrupulous businessman who also has Unión La Calera, and Unión La Calera and Defensa Justicia would have faced one another in the Copa Sudamericana, which is completely unethical for one owner to own two different clubs. And Coquimbo Unido were not treated fairly. Yes, they lost, okay, but full congratulations to Defensa Justicia. If we have a Uruguayan or an Argentinian listening to our show, English speaking, they'll say, "Oh, these Chileans are just butthurt. They can't accept defeat." But it wasn't a level equal playing field for Coquimbo Unido. You don't just move your fixture to Paraguay. So it's the same old from the 60s, 70s, 80s, favoring the Atlantic instead of the Pacific. And Bragarnik is one of the two agents with another aforementioned one. He happens to invest in Club Deporte La Serena, Fernando Felicevich, and these two were behind, surprise, surprise, with let's go with Martin Lasarte, our new national team manager. We're right behind him, are we? Let's talk about La Roja. We all love it. We all love La Roja.
And Matias, Martin Lasarte being appointed as new head coach of La Roja. Why was he appointed, you think? Was it a budget thing or was it the connections?
Oh, I think both really. Some last minute desperation. They'd had how many months since November to sort this out? Ever since that defeat to Venezuela, I mean, everybody knew Rueda was going to leave. They twiddled their thumbs, they sat on their hands, they weren't proactive in looking for managers and making decisions as to who they were going to hire next. And in the end, they went all in on Almeida from San Jose Earthquakes, and he ultimately turned them down. I mean, the NFP gave him a deadline, and he said no. And I'm assuming they expected him to say yes. And then you turn around and a day or two later, they've hired Martin Lasarte, who was obviously on the back burner as Plan B. I mean, I think that's the main concern first and foremost is that he wasn't their Plan A. But two, I mean, this is a guy who hasn't had a job in coaching for a head coach job for 2 years now. And as enthusiastic as he sounds and as he must be, he's not somebody that when we spoke last time about who the new coach should be, we said they should either risk it and go for a complete rebrand with a young upcoming coach and who has an identity and a philosophy, or they play it safe with like a Peckerman who has experience qualifying teams from into World Cups from South American qualifying. And in the end, they did neither.
I have to say, Lasarte wasn't even the backup plan, Matias. Lasarte was so they had Almeida, and then they were hoping to get either Crespo, but Crespo's negotiations with Sao Paulo were so advanced that, like you said earlier, they were putting all their hopes on Almeida after San Jose Earthquakes raised the clause. NFP can't afford it, and then the backup plan was to hire a Chilean coach from the league. And you're also left with, well, do you go with an experienced coach? Do you go with a safe bet? And they bring Lasarte, who like you said earlier, hasn't been coaching for a couple of years. Daniel, is this sort of does this feel like sort of a second plate? Like it's not, doesn't feel like an appointment that you would say he was always in their books.
This was a strategy. The NFP had this covered all along. They play along with the circus of the media, and there's a reason why they've appointed former Arsenal technical director, Spaniard, Francis Callegal, smart guy, well informed and educated in football. I think this was all done in purpose because a question to everybody. Do you actually watch the live press conferences on La Roja's official social media accounts? Because the questions are awful. I'd invite someone to throw a ball or kick it, and let's see how you control a ball. Because first of all, they're throwing questions that second-year journalism students would very likely do better. And they insist with the same questions. Who's going to be the next manager? Who's going to be the next manager? And it's like, well, Catolica and La U fans already labeled Martin Lasarte as Martin La Suerte. But hang on, you need a stroke of luck. The guy's Uruguayan. Uruguayans are defensive minded and go for the counter-attack. And that's exactly what Chile should do, because even with La Roja's best performance in international football, well, we know we've won 2 Copa Americas, we didn't have a very strong defense, and now we have possibly our strongest since the days of maybe Héctor Puebla, Fernando Astengo, or Ronald Fuentes and Javier Margas, or dare I say, the best ever, Leonel Herrera and Alberto Quintano with Elias Figueroa, when Chile would produce defenders even for a C team. That's how strong we were at the back. And now we've, Ciralta, the Diaz brothers, Maripan, Vegas, etc., etc. So Lasarte is going to go probably with that, and we need someone to score the goals. I think Lasarte psychologically is perfect for it. He's got that Uruguayan charrua oomph for the national team. He's not going to fight it and just participate. He wants to go to Qatar. He knows the Middle East. He's probably excited to, take a national team to a World Cup. The guy managed Al Ahly in Egypt. I'll give you that. Try managing Egypt. It's very hard. So I think this was a masterstroke from the NFP, considering they got pressures from 2 agents who say, the 2 agents would say, bring Lasarte. We don't have money. I can help him. And the agents do good work as well. The problem is there's no one to draw the line and say, no, this can't be done because it's not regulated. They're not stupid. So with all the candidates who were, how much were they charging? We don't know. Then that's another question. How much is Lasarte charging? So it looks like a masterstroke. And let's hope, man, he's our manager. Let's back him up. And we said him.
No, I was just going to ask. Obviously, we spoke before the hiring, before we knew who was going to be hired, that we thought experience in World Cup qualifying in South America was important. I mean, do we think that's going to hinder him, that lack of experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we'll have to raise it after the Ecuador Paraguay. But that's a very good question. And our audience can connect with us. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. Because Lasarte hasn't had that experience. How are you going to gain experience if no one gives you the opportunity to gain that experience? Lasarte's qualified for it. So, but we need strikers to bang them in, and we've got the midfielders too. But it's a crash course. International football is 90 minutes. We've got 180 minutes, and I don't think Lasarte is going to go in there for a draw. He's going to go for 6 points.
Which we definitely need.
You have to think, if you're Lasarte, this opportunity sort of just falls in your lap. You've been sitting at home for the past couple of years, and to manage any national team in South America is a huge thing to have on your resume. And just want to ask you guys, realistically, how good are our chances to qualify to Qatar with Lasarte, and if he is a step down or step up compared to Rueda, Matias?
You both know how I feel about Rueda, but this is the concern. I mean, I think I told you guys in the previous show, I was really excited by Rueda's appointment, and because on paper he had all the credentials, both domestically and internationally. And that didn't work out for whatever reason. And I've as much as I've slated him in the past, I don't think his time in Chile automatically makes him a bad manager now. He was highly coveted by the Colombian national team for good reason. He still has a good resume. It's a small blotch. So in the same way, Lasarte's CV for this particular job at this particular moment in time, especially considering he's had 2 years out, doesn't necessarily excite me. But as the last signing proved, the CV on paper, once you get into the hot seat, is doesn't really matter that much.
It's a masterstroke because Pablo Milad is not the kind of guy with football administration experience. He's a politician, and he can easily grab his smartphone and call President Piñera or all the advisors at government level. He was the intendant for the region of Maule. And you need to have those skills, those people skills and business acumen if you're the president of the Football Association. So when you look at Lasarte, when he worked, there's a reason why they called him Machete during his time at Real Sociedad in Donostia in the Basque Country. He managed Bravo. He's going to keep Bravo as their leader, their captain. Vidal is not stupid. He's not going to go against him. He played a bit of public relations and said, welcome, Profe, we back you up 100%. And that shows the professionalism. The goalkeeper coach is Roberto Navajas, one of the best in the business. Okay, because who's going to be after Bravo? Maybe Cortés, maybe Arias, but there needs to be Carabalí, or there needs to be someone else.
Those two names sent shivers down my spine. The thought of those two in goal.
Yeah, but they've been given opportunities. So that's your question, Matias, is the one we're going to have to address. And who's going to bang them in?
Yeah, I mean that's the no. I mean that's the problem we've had throughout this entire process, and I mean it was a subject we were going to come on to later. But Eduardo Vargas and the San Pauli again. We hoped, that would help him bring out his old goal scoring self, but it's turned out to not be the case at all. And you said it. I think this team is built to be a good defensive team, to be a good counter-attacking team. But, the issue is who is there to score the goals at the end of those counter-attacks. And I think that's something we're sorely lacking at the moment. But I don't know what you think of the current national team. I mean, I think I'm under no illusions that they're nothing like the side they were, 5-6 years ago at their peak. But I still think there's enough quality in this team, especially with the older experienced players, to qualify for Qatar. Whether that's directly or with a playoff place, I still think this team is good enough.
Thomas, are you with Matias? I'm with him. I think we do have it.
To me, here's the thing. With me, I think Lasarte is a safe bet-ish. But realistically, just because you bring in Lasarte doesn't really change much. I mean, unless this hire turns out to be even worse than Rueda.
Results-wise.
Results-wise, exactly. On paper, like you said, it's a different thing. Just for me, like nothing changes as far as what you're dealing with in the players that you have really available through selection, and not even that, because here's the thing with Lasarte. He's probably in his press conference he said that he hadn't even talked to the players yet. So how is that really gonna influence? We know that he has a relationship with Bravo. We know that he has a relationship with various players in the National League. But the thing is, how do you handle big personalities as in the locker room? He's a guy that, coach at Real Sociedad. I think that could help him up. But I don't know. I just feel that this is a step down from Rueda. I hope I'm wrong. I really, really hope I'm wrong. But I don't know. I just think if we knew that this was going to be the outcome, I would have hoped that Rueda would have stayed.
That's a good point.
And hindsight, as Matias says, is beautiful because Miguel Ramirez, stepped down from Santiago Wanderers, one of the best Chilean candidates for the national team, or Jose Luis Sierra, and Coto Sierra is doing, strong at Palestino. Lasarte is a good signing. I'm not a fan, I never have been, of Arturo Salah. He's just a smiley face to keep everyone happy. Left no legacy as a administrator for the Chilean game. He did more as a coach in the 90s. He's just a yes man, and he did well signing Rueda. And Rueda is a fantastic coach and didn't bring in the results. And we got Ecuador and Paraguay, but Lasarte's like, bring it on. I'll do the job. So his man management skills, with everything that you've pointed, Thomas, it's bang on, because it's not week in, week out football. It's micro cycles and macro cycles. You've only got 5 games in the year, and you've got to plan them very well. And then there's a Copa America, which we still don't know it's going to take place in Argentina.
And I think when he was announced, the press conferences and the videos that Lasarte put out on, that he was filmed giving a speech on the ANFP Instagram page. And, Rueda, for all his good intentions, I never found him charismatic. I never found him energetic in those press conferences, in those speeches. But there was something about Lasarte. He sounded really enthusiastic about being there, and it was just something that I felt, he imparted that enthusiasm onto me. And one line in particular I liked. He said that the door wasn't closed to anyone, to a single Chilean player, which I think is really important. We know Rueda was stubborn and not calling up certain players. Every manager's had that in the past. They've had their favourites, but what I like is that this is a clean slate. And he said that everyone, no matter the age, so like I mentioned earlier, Mago Jimenez in with a shout. But every Chilean player out there has a chance to make the next squad. And I think that's what excites me the most. There's nobody we know that's going to be left out for preference reasons.
And that's a great point, right? Because at the end of the day, there was various players that just weren't to the liking of Rueda, and he left them out. He was asked countless times why Eugenio Mena wasn't in the team, even though he was having a very, very good year with Racing. But he never really gave an explanation. And the thing is, I like that he's open to all the players, but unless this becomes a desfile, a long list of players like we saw from 2018 to 2019, where around 50 players were shown, I think you have to stay with more or less the 20, 30 players that you have. But I'm just really, really hoping that Lasarte can really get the best of of players that are playing in Mexico, MLS, second-tier European leagues. Because if those players can perform for Peru, for Ecuador, for Paraguay, what is it that they cannot perform for us?
And also considering there's a pandemic, it takes one player to get infected, so you got to keep your players as well, your options open. 100%.
And CONMEBOL just confirmed the date and time for the qualifiers. So it's going to be Chile, March 25th versus Paraguay at home in Santiago, late 9:30 p.m. kickoff time. And 5 days later, they travel to Quito against Ecuador on March 30th in an early 4 p.m. showdown. President of ANFP, Pablo Milad, said he wants fans at the game, at the Estadio Nacional. We were talking about Copa America. I personally don't think it's going to happen, but I'm not talking about Copa America, speaking about the game versus Paraguay. Is this realistic, fans at the game?
Absolutely. And living here in Chile, I mean, Matias, you're probably in a worse scenario in England, but you can't really compare because it's winter and here it's summer. And then we turned the tables around. It was horrible here in winter with the infections. It's like authorities need to advise people, go out, have your fun, and people will stay indoors. They do the exact reverse psychology. The beaches are packed, the shopping malls are packed, the bars and restaurants are all packed. Hello, man. You've got a risk. Don't be complacent. And the government's actually done really well with the vaccines. There's over a million, and they've been really responsible, whether you don't like the current Chilean government or you do, which is a very big minority who did vote for them and still like them. And so Milad is a politician, and the decision is sensible. The fans will have to back Lasarte. The fans are desperate to get back to the stadiums, and this is where the ANFP make their dough, from ticket sales. Without La Roja, the ANFP wouldn't be, the ANFP. Well, it would be similar to the AFP, but that's, I'm not good at jokes. So you need that as a product. And let's be honest, I mean, Matias, do you think there's going to be a packed house? No.
No. 10,000, isn't it? 10,000. I mean, 10,000 is realistic. I mean, that is in a stadium that size, less than a quarter full. Easy enough to put in any of the social distancing measures that you want to keep it safe. We know obviously at the moment. We obviously know at the moment Chile has the 5th best vaccination rate in the whole world per 100 people. So everything points to the direction of this happening, and I don't think that report would have come out today had that not been the case. So I don't know if they're like they were in other, or at least they were here when fans returned to stadiums. They advised against fans singing too much, for spraying the aerosols too much. Whether or not that will be the case in Chile, but I'd love to hear that national anthem again with at least 10,000 fans in the stadium.
Lucky fans.
And guys, Juan Antonio Pizzi, new head coach of Racing, reuniting with Marcelo Diaz. Let's hope that partnership goes well, and maybe, who knows, maybe he can be recalled into the team. Manuel Pellegrini doing very, very well with Real Betis. Claudio Bravo, of course, still injured. And Gary Medel still undecided if he will return to Chile or he will answer Juan Román Riquelme's call to Boca Juniors.
I'm keeping everything fingers and toes crossed that Claudio Bravo is fit for the upcoming qualifiers. I think that could be huge for us.
I'm also keeping my fingers crossed, and maybe I don't know. I'm seen as the weird one out, but it doesn't happen also in the women's. It takes Cristiane Endler to get injured in a French league match, and we're gone against Cameroon in March. Or Bravo. Medel might go to Boca. Marcelo Diaz ruled himself out for future selection with Lasarte. So something has happened after 4 years from from the Russia Confederations Cup, and it's sad. And he's also with Mena and Arias, and Arias is in red hot form as a goalkeeper, so that's healthy for the national team. There's heaps of Chileans around the world. We got Yanara Edo, we got, Sofia Hartar, we got Francisca Lara, we got Guillermo Maripan scoring for fun, we got Junior Fernandez in Turkey, the guys in the MLS. Mexico's just started, Mauricio Isla doing very well at Flamengo. So, no, there's always, thankfully, there's always Chileans playing abroad and doing really well.
Now let's just hope that those players actually are in form when March comes around, because at the end of the day, Claudio Bravo, for example, saying a scenario here, he could be having a great season, but gets injured, and all of a sudden we have to either call up Arias, who, in my opinion, in my opinion, I think if Bravo is not there, Arias shouldn't be there, and if Bravo is there, then there's no need for him to be there. So
I disagree. Sorry. We need the best. Bravo and Arias can be on the bench, and Arias can perfectly do the goods on the pitch. I don't understand why people crucify Arias because of his stuff up in the Copa America in Brazil. Bravo's done more stuff ups too. Bravo isn't Bravo without his stuff ups. And every goalkeeper, come on, Thomas, you're a goalkeeper too. Goalkeepers stuff up, and you're going to crucify them. And then when they do brilliant saves, they're the heroes. It's a very unpleasant position. Goalkeeping is not for everyone.
That's for sure.
I wouldn't rule out Arias. And then you got the Chileans saying, "Oh, he's not Chilean enough." They just find excuses. Arias should be in the national team. It's up to the selections of Lasarte. Yeah, we're gonna get used to the Lasarte.
Yeah.
Lasarte now.
Well, a new era begins at the Chilean national team, and that's all the time we have for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. For myself, Matias, Grez, and Daniel Campos. Until next time.